Well, Puerto Rico's Olympic athletes have arrived in Japan for the Tokyo Games. 37 athletes will compete for Puerto Rico in 15 different sports. The women outnumber the men because the U.S. territory qualified for the Olympics in women's basketball for the first time. The 12-member women's basketball team won the honor almost 18 months ago at the Women's Olympic qualifying tournament in France. Puerto Rico's flag bearers are both table tennis players. Adriana Diaz and Brian Afandor will carry the flag for the delegation at Friday's opening ceremony. And in Tokyo, the Olympics haven't even started, but more than 70 COVID-19 cases have now been linked to officials and athletes at the Games, including an American gymnast who has now withdrawn from the Games. And with just 3 days to go, fears are growing that the Games will turn into a super spreader event. Olympic organizers insist that they will be safe. Will Ripley has more.
Even Olympians are not immune from the cruelty of COVID-19. The pandemic striking some of the world's top athletes, including a U.S. gymnast just days before the opening ceremony. Catching COVID early this year cost Priscilla Loomis more than 8 weeks of training. The American Antiguan high jumper still has trouble breathing.
Absolutely devastated. I am heartbroken. I'm in healing right now. I'm in mourning.
Loomis says she ignored doctors' advice and kept training, but failed to qualify for Tokyo 2020.
This was it. This was my final curtain bow.
British rower Una Cousins qualified for the Olympics in March 2020. She came down with a serious case of long COVID, leaving her with chronic fatigue.
I'm really struggling to exercise still. Kind of by comparison, I was doing like 35 hours of training a week when I was well, and now I can probably do like 3 20-minute sessions in a week, super lightly.
And this is more than a year later.
Yeah, I just really struggled with really intense fatigue.
Cousins calls her coronavirus battle an emotional roller coaster.
We are dealing with a disease that we didn't even know how to define a year ago.
CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta says researchers don't fully know why the virus hits some people harder than others.
So if you're an athlete, you could have symptoms from COVID that last a long time and really impact your performance for a long time as well.
Are these athletes putting themselves at risk if they're coming here?
I think it's really tough to justify bringing 206 countries, states, and territories together in the middle of a pandemic.
A risk Vinesh Phogat is willing to take. The Indian wrestler is a gold medal favorite, #1 in her category. She says postponing competition by a year was an even bigger challenge than catching the coronavirus.
I had to start my training again from scratch. It was very difficult.
Surging cases in Japan and the world mean Olympians won't have fans in the stands cheering them on. Nobody knows if nearly empty venues will be enough to stop the Summer Games from becoming a super spreader event. At Tokyo 2020, not just Olympic dreams, lives are on the line.
And meantime, one of the biggest Olympic sponsors is hitting pause on its game-related ads in Japan. Now Toyota announced they'll be running, quote, regular ads during the Games. A company spokesperson says the company never planned on any Olympic-related commercials in the first place. Also confirming that Toyota CEO will not be attending the Olympic opening ceremony on Friday. Also because they wanted to refrain from attending because people who were looking forward to the event now cannot even go. Now this also comes as many in Tokyo and Japan protest against the international event as COVID-19 continues to be a major threat. Toyota is one of the Olympics' top sponsors alongside major brands like Coca-Cola, Samsung, and Visa. And Cuba is struggling to battle the pandemic, now reporting the highest per capita COVID-19 caseload in the Americas. The Caribbean nation kept coronavirus infections low last year, but the recent spread of the virus is straining its healthcare system. The increase in cases helped stroke rare protests that have shaken up the communist-run island. To counter the anti-government protest, authorities organized pro-government rallies across the island on Saturday, which were attended by thousands. But many Cubans have aimed their anger at their own government's handling of both the pandemic and the economy. Many people have to wait in line to buy food. Medicine is also in short supply. The latest outbreak of the virus in Cuba is fueled by the arrival of the more contagious Delta variant that was first identified in India. Cuba reported nearly 4,000 confirmed cases per million residents over the last week. That's 9 times more than the world average and more than any other country in the Americas. And switching gears now, in the Turks and Caicos, cases of COVID-19 have spiked dramatically recently, most of them being tourists. Our Deandra Hamilton tells us what leaders are doing to try and stop this spread.
Turks and Caicos does not have the Delta or Gamma variants of COVID-19. This despite a tripling of active cases in the span of just 1 week. Health Minister E.J. Saunders held a press conference on Friday revealing the majority of infections are tourists.
12 of them were tourists. 12 of them were tourists. 15% were persons who picked it up from other persons. So through contact tracing, we found 3 persons. So this is persons who picked it up from someone else they knew. And 25%, 5 persons, were community spread. They just happened to get it. They don't know how they got it. It wasn't related to anyone else.
While the new infections, which have since Friday shot up to 30 active cases, is concerning, it is not surprising, he said, and will not cause the July 1st relaxation of restrictions to be wrapped back.
No, we're not panicking. We're monitoring the situation. And I can certainly say this, at 20 we're not going to panic. If we start to see it get to 50, I believe it will probably get up to 30, just because, like I said before, we knew that there was those cluster of days when everybody wanted to have parties, the 4th of July weekend, and we believe there were going to be some community cases there. And I believe it will probably get as high as 30. We don't want it to get there, but if it starts to get to 50, to 100, then we know that we have a problem. And then we would have to start to look at how to do it. Now, as I've said before, we're going to be systematic, we're going to be focused, and we're not going to be going back and forth. So for those of you who are wondering what's going to happen, we're not going to roll back the curfews. So we're not coming here, I'm not standing here today and say we're changing the curfews. We're not going to change the protocols, we're not going to change the requirements. And the reason why we're not doing this is because I need you to work with us, so we can get through this and we can get them done. And I believe that we can work together as partners.
All of the new cases are in Providenciales. No one is hospitalized.
All right, thanks, Deandra. Well, meantime, Carnival Cruise Lines is getting ready to get back on the waterways. On Monday, the company announced 3 more of its ships will return to operation in September. The ships will sail from New Orleans, Galveston, and Baltimore. 4 more ships will begin service in October, with the full fleet back in commission by the end of the year. In a press release, the company says vaccinated trips will continue through October, which means unvaccinated guests will have to go under pre-cruise testing. Carnival adds COVID-19 safety measures may be extended based on guidance from health and medical advisors. And Delta Airlines claims the top spot for the best overall experience for flyers for a 3rd year in a row. Delta Airlines was the top performer in areas such as reliability and travel experience. Now, that's according to a study conducted by the Points Guy. While the carrier didn't stand out in any single category, the airline scored consistently across all the criteria, which helped push them to that top spot.